North Carolina Property Tax Commission. Let me start out with one of the duties that I have at each session is to quote something that talks about our State Government Ethics Act. And that is, in accordance with the State Government's Ethics Act, it is the duty of every commission member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearance of conflict. Does any commission member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the commission today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved. Seeing none, we'll get into our agenda, which has changed significantly, obviously, from when it was first published. And these items go on the calendar, and there's a calendar that goes out. I think it's called a 50-day calendar that goes out, and then responses come back from the parties regarding continuances or any matters that get settled or withdrawn. And so that changes our calendar. Usually the parties asking for their first continuance, it's granted. After that, we certainly look more closely at any request for continuance. But today, for instance, we had from Durham County 1, 2, 3 cases that were continued. From Vance County, we had a case that was continued. And from Watauga County, we had a case that was withdrawn. And we actually had an OVA, what we call a no AV 14 or no AV 63, which are forms that are required to be filed with commission. That one from Brunswick County, and that one was withdrawn. So we're going to have our administrative session today, which normally would be on Friday. Let me introduce the commission members. I'm Robert Hunter, chairman of the commission, and today we have with us Vice Chairman Terry Wheeler and Commissioner June Michelle, and also our counsel and secretary, Steve Pelfrey, and joining us and hosting the meeting, and one of our excellent employees at the Local Government Commission that works for the Property Tax Commission and does a lot of matters like this and keeping up with the commission business, Alexander Bendette, who is recently got married within the last month. But Alexandra, I believe you did not change your last name. Am I correct, or am I wrong?
I will be, but I have not yet.
Okay, so
we just got our marriage certificate and the license, or in the mail, so that'll be coming up soon.
Okay, well, let us know what we need to address you by. So, but we're happy and pleased for you. We've got some administrative matters to talk about, and I think Steve has a little bit of an update on things that are going on and changes. I think most people know that the CDC and Governor Cooper have, of course, Governor Coopers are the ones that control, have relaxed some of the requirements that we dealt with due to the fact that a lot of people are getting the vaccinations, and I think all of us have had our vaccinations here at the commission, and would urge others to do so unless they have a medical issue that would cause a problem if they had the vaccine. But we still are meeting virtually this week. The commission members had hoped to be in Raleigh this week, and then with the recent gasoline shortage resulting from the hacking of the Colonial Pipeline, we had to go to a meeting virtually for the commission again. We have been meeting virtually with the parties for, I guess we missed, when COVID first hit, we missed 3 months, and then we started meeting with the commission members in Raleigh. And maybe after that, maybe I think it was December or the January session, we went to commission members being at home and doing this virtually. We've been doing the hearings virtually since we resumed last year with our commission meetings, and we're hopeful to start back in July of being able to have in-person hearings in Raleigh. I think even though we go back to in-person hearings, we will still, if the parties need and request, we'll probably try to give them the opportunity to have a virtual hearing if it works best for them and if we can work it out. A lot of times, especially for pro se parties, when they're a long way away, it's difficult for them to come. And some may say it's a hindrance to them pursuing their appeals, but also it probably is as well for some of our business appeals when people have to come a long way and their lawyers have to come a long way, and that gets more expensive. So we'll try to be as flexible as we can. These complex hearings, it works much better when we're in person. However, we've been able to do a lot of pro se hearings and a few other hearings while we've been meeting virtually, but we have some that we need to start addressing that require in person. Let me go over the rest of the calendar this week while we are doing this, and then I'll ask Steve to take over. For tomorrow, we have a case on Robert Sweeney. And Steve, you said you thought one of the cases tomorrow had settled since last week. That's shown on here as a hearing. Was it Eric Williams or was it the Sweeney case?
It was the Sweeney case. So that that was expected really up until kind of the last minute, but we did find out late in the week that that case had settled.
Okay.
And while we're talking about that, the very first case that was on the agenda for today, the Imperial Hotel Group, that case was originally continued so that the parties could pursue trying to resolve that. But then we found out like the next day that it had been resolved. So that actually is a settled case, even though it's marked on the calendar as a continuation.
Okay, I'll change the note on mine as well. So then on Tuesday, the first case is now settled. We have a motion to dismiss filed by Wake County in the Godfrey case. We have a motion to dismiss. All these are Wake County motions to dismiss or cases for tomorrow. There was one from Johnson County, the Cox case, but that has been settled. So we have tomorrow, besides the Godfrey motion, we have one involving Gateway Hospitality, one involving Marco Drive Hotels, one involving Apex Hospitality Group. So that's 4 motions from Wake County to hear tomorrow. And then we have a hearing involving Eric Williams. That should be a full hearing from Wake County. And Wake County attorney is Mr. Ken Murphy, and the appellate is pro se, so representing himself. And then the Strickland case has been settled, and as I think I mentioned, the Johnson County Cox case has been settled. So it looks like 4 motions to dismiss tomorrow, and now only 1 hearing for tomorrow. On Wednesday, from Mecklenburg County, we have a number of items. We have a motion to dismiss involving HOS 3 LLC from Mecklenburg. It's a pro se case as far as one of the managers representing that company would be representing them, and they would not have an attorney. Mr. Adden from Mecklenburg County represents the county in all of these motions from Mecklenburg County and will be appearing tomorrow, including the Cornell Phillip case for hearing, Charles Udash matter for hearing, and there's actually 2 cases there, one from 2020 and one from 2021, and he is appearing pro se. And then a case of William Young for hearing from Mecklenburg also, who's appearing pro se. Then there's a case The Christopher Howlinski case is settled. The South Mint Street apartment investors case is settled. And the Charlotte Gateway Village case is settled. Our Arsley, I guess it is, Theater Development Company is settled. The TSO Tyrone Tryon Plaza case has been continued, and the Belk Inc. case has been continued. And also, we had a motion from Mecklenburg County. Well, it's not a motion. It was a no AB 14 or no AB 16 from Mecklenburg County. And that motion or that matter has been withdrawn. On Thursday, we have the case from Pamlico County. We have 3 cases. First case, the Spencer case, has been settled. The Bufflehead Point LLC case has been withdrawn. And the David Spambelluri, I hope I'm close, case has been settled. So all those 3 cases have been settled. We have 2 no AB 14s and no AB 63 matters for hearing, and GFM, the second, and Carolina Properties Division. We had another one, Discovery Drive Investors, and that has been withdrawn. So that gives everyone an idea, better idea of what the calendar will look like this week. So Steve, can you kind of update us on where we are? And I'd also ask Steve if he could give us some information on how the things have been going with the commission as far as the cases that we've been dealing with and the cases that we still have pending. I think we still have done reasonably well, but we'll let Steve tell us, even though we've been in the COVID situation. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess let me start with just a comment on one of the cases from Pamlico County for, I believe that was Thursday. One of those cases is marked as settled, and technically it is because timeliness was part of the issue there, but that was actually, there will be an order remanding that case back to the local board. So
Okay.
that was a situation where the parties did resolve it, but as to the timeliness issue. Next, just sort of an update on the building. So of course, I don't know about y'all, but I was kind of surprised last week when the CDC came out with such a big change in recommendations for distancing and mask wearing and so forth. And of course, the government of North Carolina, or the governor, I guess, kind of followed suit pretty quickly after some further discussion with his folks. So statewide, we're kind of at the same situation, but at all of these levels, of course, it's up to local businesses and local entities, I guess, to decide whether or not they're going to have some kind of restrictions in place. So I say all that to say that right now, the state buildings are still under the same protocol that they have been for some time. In other words, there's still masks required in the DOR building. There's still social distancing required in the DOR building and that type of thing. So that's just as of today. But again, all this other stuff just happened within the last few days. So it's my understanding we were informed, we being DOR staff were informed by administration today, number one, that all those things are still in place, but number two, that the state folks will be meeting with Department of Health and Human Services and trying to decide, what, if any, changes there may be to those protocols in light of the recent CDC recommendations and adjustments to the governor's executive order. So we may be in good shape to start in-person hearings as quickly as we thought we were, maybe by July. But I guess that really kind of remains to be seen at this point. Certainly August is looking pretty optimistic, but maybe July as well. So that's that on the building. as far as the appeals as a whole go, um, you know, I, I think that this is a statewide thing. It's practically a national thing. I think that real estate values, especially for residential property, seem to be remaining really solid, going up in a lot of places, and that type of thing. And that sort of economy, that sort of market outlook, of course, has an impact on the number of appeals that tend to get filed. So I think in the past, like back around two. Okay.
See,
I
I
got
don't know if
circles
it's
and everybody
me or
disappeared
if
for a
it's
second. You're muted. Yeah.
okay. I think you can hear me now. I was trying and I was muted, but it paused you there and I didn't get it. And I imagine the others didn't either. You were talking about real estate values going up.
Sure, sure. And I was talking when everybody's the little circles popped up and everybody's faces disappeared. So with real estate values going up, of course, that's impacted the number of appeals that we might expect as opposed to maybe a worse market time. Back in around 2009, I want to say that we had maybe 1,200, 1,300 appeals filed each year. And that was a lot to deal with. Lately, for the last 4 years, in 2018, we had 407 appeals filed, very low number. In 2019 and 2020, we had 673 and 676. And for 2021, so far, we've got 224. And that's basically on track to end up around that same amount. It's around 775 or something like that. So about 675, the same we've seen for the last couple of years, is how this year is starting out. What's useful about that number is we have about 650 appeals that are pending right now, 650 appeals that are being worked and that are being reviewed and that are some are ready for hearing, but will all get toward being ready for hearing. So we've got about a year's worth of inventory in stock. And what that means to me is that appeals are being disposed of about as quickly as they're coming in. And so I think that that's a useful number. There are a bunch of appeals that are pending, depending on the outcome of a couple of different situations. These are mostly personal property appeals, but those aren't really available to us to schedule right now. There are also some odd situations like those few appeals out of Pender County. We talked about this a month or two ago, where the properties are involved in litigation, and so their appeals are kind of on hold until that litigation gets resolved. But just broadly speaking, that's basically it. Again, getting rid of appeals, disposing of appeals about as quickly as they're coming in, and we seem to be on track as far as volume goes with where we've been for the last couple of years.
Steve, let me ask a question. Maybe Alexandra, if she knows better than you, about how many appeals get put on the 50-day calendar?
Well, I'll go ahead and say something and then let Alexandra jump in and cut me off if I'm wrong. Typically, it's about 40 to 50 appeals. And so that 50-day letter goes out and basically advises the parties of the month that their appeal is that their hearing is tentatively scheduled for. And so at that point, we do get some contact from one or both of the parties saying, well, that's not a good time for me, or I'm going to need extra time, or whatever. And it gets continued at the 50-day level. And then about 20 days out, everybody gets a notice saying, okay, we told you before that your session was going to be May. Well, you're now on for Tuesday, May 18th at 9:00. And so that just tells them the specific date and time of their hearing. And again, we get a fair number of, well, there's a fair amount of activity that results from those 20-day notices. That's when we get another rush of continuations, and then right up to the date of the hearing, it's possible for cases to settle or get withdrawn. I'll also mention that all along the way, our staff are working on all of these appeals. So it's not just the ones that make it to hearing or that make it to the calendar. All of these 670 some appeals each year, our staff are working through virtually all of them. Some of them they don't. The ones that have administrative issues, like they're missing the AV14 form or the AV63 form, they don't get involved in those. But for every other appeal that gets filed, our office, our staff are contacting the parties, trying to help them identify the issues, trying to help them resolve the issues if they can. Sometimes not in the last year or so, but often they've gone out. Part of their regular practice was to go out to the counties and visit the properties and visit the county staff and so forth, and make sure that when parties come to the commission, that's not the first time somebody has heard their appeal, that somebody has listened to them before then, somebody has considered what they have to say about their property and their situation and so forth. So there's a lot of time goes into every one of these appeals before it ever even gets to the 50-day calendar.
Well, and that's what a lot of us don't see. The public obviously doesn't see it unless it's their case. And even the commission members, we don't see that part of it. I get involved in hearing a little bit more than maybe the regular commission members. But yeah, there's a lot of work going on before they're ready for hearing. And then it's not like that cases are ready for hearing and we're a year behind. It's like it takes a good while for those cases to work through. And usually, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, within, what would you say, once they're ready, most of them, unless there's complex issues, and that usually would keep them from being ready, how long does it take for us to get a case on our calendar?
Well, usually when a case is ready for hearing, depending on the type of case and the volume of cases, they'll be on the calendar as soon as we can. So if today a specialist realizes that a case is ready for hearing, then they'll go ahead and put it on the calendar. But keep in mind that since there are those 50-day letters, that decision really doesn't cause the hearing to hit the calendar for probably 60 to 90 days.
Yeah.
So it does take a little bit of time for that to happen, but yeah, it's a constant process and a constant pipeline of cases flowing in and flowing back out for hearing.
And so generally, once a case is ready, we're able to calendar them within 3 months or so. So, and that gives the parties a notice, and then of course your calendar goes out, and like we said, we've got a lot of cases. Obviously, we couldn't hear 40 or 50 cases on a commission session of 4 days. But based on your experience and the staff's experience, you put on what you think would be a number of cases that could be handled, recognizing that a lot of them will be continued, settled, or withdrawn. But even that, you can't control the calendar. And then so things happen that even though we had, for instance, today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cases settled for a hack day session. We start at 1:30 on Monday, so commission members can travel in. And normally we have full days on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday when we start at 9. But we would have had a hard time hearing 2, 4, 5 cases at full hearing today had they all stayed on the calendar. But as your experience and we've learned, a lot of those will get calendared or settled. I mean, continued or settled or withdrawn, but you don't know. And it's like court cases when they schedule especially a civil term of court. For those who've been involved with that, they set a calendar for the week, and they have a lot of cases. And then all of a sudden, as it gets within the week before the calendar, the parties get serious about settling, and lots of cases get settled right before they're to go to trial, and in this case, before hearing. So calendaring is a complex issue, which everybody tries to do their very, very best, but you cannot predict what parties are going to do. So we have to try to schedule things, and we think we can handle. And then sometimes, like today, that it clears up. And for instance, on Wednesday, we've got it looks like 4 cases for hearing and 1 motion. It'll be a busy day to hear 4 cases. I think 2 of those are related. So if they are, then we'll probably have 3 to hear, and that will be that'll be challenging. I think we can do it. Normally 2 cases is, I guess, what we consider doable, hopefully on a day, and it depends on what types of cases. And the big complex cases sometimes get scheduled for a full day and even 2 days. Steve, let me ask you, we've had the Lowe cases and Lowe's and Lowe's stores, lots of those, and there was a case that went all the way up to, I guess, the Court of Appeals, and it got sent back. And then the counties had those to look at, or we did, to look at rehearing them, but lots of those have gotten settled. And I don't guess we've heard one recently. We put them on the calendar, but the counties and Lowe's have worked pretty well in getting those settled. Obviously, those are complex cases, and if we hear them, are going to take a significant amount of time for the commission. But do you know how those other Lowe's cases stand? If you know, and if you don't, that's fine.
I do. I actually looked at that this morning. There are still 6 Lowe's cases that are pending. But just a couple of years ago, I think there were 20 or 25 Lowe's cases that were pending. So it kind of comes in fits and starts. Sometimes we'll have a whole bunch of settlements that come in, and then we don't hear anything for a while, and then more settlements come in, and then nothing, and then we'll schedule a couple, and then more settlements and that kind of thing. So they are working through them. I know that it appears that the counsel for the appellant has really been working on trying to get these cases resolved and do what they can to do that. So.
Yeah. Do we have any other big cases that are multiple type cases like the Lowe's cases, or most of the other cases individual type?
Most of them are individual. I'm trying to think if there's another example, but the ones that come to mind are, for example, the Harris Teeter cases. The Harris Teeter case, we're still waiting on a decision from the Supreme Court for that. And we'll, depending on the outcome there, that will give us some guidance on what to do with the rest of them. There are a lot of other personal property appeals that are filed on behalf of several different property owners. So it's a little complex about how to link them all together, but they all are essentially, again, personal property issues. And I think that as soon as we can get resolution on maybe one other case, that might help us out there. It's sort of a general argument that could apply to a bunch of personal property cases, depending on how it works out.
The Harris Teeter, how many cases would that impact, depending on which way it goes, of course? Do you have any idea?
So I don't, not specifically for Harris Teeter, but all those cases that I'm describing to you, the Harris Teeter and then kind of the other group, All of that together, I believe, are about 450 appeals.
Wow.
So, and that's all. I didn't count any of that 450 in the 650 that we were talking about being ready for hearing. All of these cases are just waiting for the outcome in a couple of situations. So, and
Okay.
again, one of them being at the Supreme Court. And while I'm mentioning that, there are a couple of cases at the Court of Appeals. One is a residential appeal that the commission heard 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm not certain that that is a serious appeal to the Court of Appeals. When our office mails the decision of the commission to every party, it has information in there about how to appeal that decision and directs folks to the Court of Appeals. But even though it's going to the Court of Appeals, the appeal process starts by notifying our office that they want to appeal the commission's decision. So we got one of those in a residential case, but we haven't heard anything more from it. And so occasionally that will happen where somebody sends it in because they think they're supposed to, or they send it in because they believe that's all there is to appeal it further. But again, I don't know yet, but I'm not sure that that's an appeal that will go much further. There is also, I don't know if y'all remember, but we had there was a motion to dismiss for untimeliness that was filed a few months ago, and part of the appellant's argument was I don't remember if it was the North Carolina Supreme Court or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court had put had kind of stopped the deadlines for filing matters in court for a period of about 30 days. And that, if it affected the Property Tax Commission, then that tolling of the deadline would have potentially affected the filings in this case. The commission, of course, found that the commission is not a court and therefore not subject to those rules, but that decision has been appealed to the Court of Appeals. And that actually affected 3 appeals, but it's all the same answer. So really, that's the only, that and the Harris Teeter case at the Supreme Court, those are the only cases right now that are in the appellate system.
Yeah. Well, and of course, talking about all of those cases and that we have filed, and we dispose of all those cases. And of course, even though a small percentage is done by hearing, full hearing, if we didn't have them calendaring, most of those would not be resolved. But the ones that are continued today, for instance, they'll go back on the calendar probably the next time. And of course, maybe they'll be continued, and I mean, maybe they'll be settled, and maybe they'll require a hearing. Usually, a lot of those do get settled. But I see the other commission members don't, but you and I see, Steve, and Alexandra does the number of cases that we settled, which I have to sign, and then you also sign those. So, for instance, when I got the package of the material, I haven't counted, but I've probably got 50 or more orders to sign where cases have been settled. So even though sometimes we don't have full hearings on cases, we're serving our purpose of giving people a chance to have an appeal. And then, of course, if they resolve it before we hear it, then that's you've had both parties that have reached an agreement. Unless you've got something else, Steve, let's see if the other commissioners have questions that they might want to ask, or suggestions, or whatever we may need to talk about. Terry, you got any, Commissioner Vice Chairman Wheeler, do you have any questions or comments? So you've been on this commission for a long time, 20 some years, I know. So if you've got some comments or suggestions, we'd be glad to hear them.
No, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Good report.
Jen?
Yeah, I do have a question about Thursday, the possibility of one of the cases being um, carried over to Thursday. Does that happen usually? I haven't been on the commission that long, but I think sometimes in the past, I think we have carried something over or um,
Talking about
rescheduled something for the next day.
the ones
So is
from
that something
Wednesday.
that we look at right now? Or we wait until later?
Well, Steve can take a look at that. He'll probably have a better idea than I do. And it may be sometimes those Mecklenburg cases do get settled, but most of the time they're settled before now, as they're going to be. But 4 cases, 2 of them are similar, and I would think we'll do those at the same time. I don't think they involve different properties. And so that would get us down to 3, which we probably would try to handle. But if we don't get them all done, then we would have to push it to Thursday. Steve, can you comment? Do you know those 2 cases that are just different years? Is that the same property and we can hear those at the same time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe that is the case. I think that those are the same property, 2 different years. I'll also mention that I believe, and I haven't looked all the way through my package yet, but I believe, last I heard anyway, we had not received any exhibits for one of those cases. So even though you see 4 lines on there, I don't think that it's going to end up feeling like 4 hearings for one reason or another, either by combination or the length of the hearings and that type of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, and so Commissioner Michaud, we wouldn't move something now for from Wednesday to Thursday. But as things develop, if we see, that's always a possibility. And of course, if we don't reach them all on Wednesday, we would need to move it to Thursday. Yeah, good question. Good question. Alexandra, you deal with a lot of these cases from an administrative standpoint. And by the way, thank you. On short notice, you were able to get all of our materials FedEx to us in a timely manner. And I also have those orders that y'all sent that I'll be signing. And I think Steve's got some more opinions to send me. And so I'll be dealing with those this week and getting them back to you. But anything else that you have, Alexandra, is comments or suggestions?
No, not for me.
Okay.
I'm just here to do whatever y'all ask.
And you do it so well. And hopefully we don't ask too much.
No, y'all are good.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yes, Steve.
Just one comment, and you're mentioning the last minute kind of thing popped this into my head. I know that Alexandra scrambled to get everything out to everybody on time this week, and she's obviously a valuable part of our team and in helping with the commission as well. But it reminded me that as we're starting to think down the road toward what the meetings are going to look like. I know we're talking about in person and so forth now. We're talking about the possibility of continuing to offer virtual hearings for the parties. It may be useful to go ahead and start thinking about what that's going to look like, so that we can kind of plan accordingly. If it's going to be where it's, you know, always in person but occasionally virtual, or if it's going to be virtual on a regular basis, or however the commission sees fit, the earlier we know all of that, the easier it is to plan. Obviously we couldn't have planned the gas shortage or anything like that, but if we do want to, if the commission wants to continue to offer virtual hearings to some degree, it might be helpful to figure out as far in advance as we can, you know, when those are going to be versus the in-person hearing. You're muted, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
Yeah, excuse me. That makes a lot of sense because we don't want to stop and start the types of hearing we're doing, like, especially on one day and, from another. But we can look and see, and maybe we put that in our letter, especially to the pro se's, but maybe into everybody. You and I can talk more about that, but and see what kind of requests we have to do that, and then kind of we can count on in person. And then if we see we've got requests for virtual, we'll try to just schedule a time that we could do some of those hearings for parties who might request on a virtual, set aside a day or however it might be, depending on how many requests we get. But you think about that, and we'll chat about it as we go back to the in-person hearings. One thing we're going to have to deal with is people who, if people have been vaccinated, and we can talk later about this, but if they've been vaccinated, I think most of us would probably feel comfortable about them being in the room. Our room, for those not familiar with it, is a kind of a hearing room there in the Department of Revenue on the first floor. And it's set up for us for in-person hearings, but it doesn't have a whole lot of room to spread out. So if we have occasion, we may have to talk about some of those things, Steve, but hopefully the people that we would be dealing with would have been fully vaccinated. If not, we may want to think about trying to deal with a mask requirement for those. But we can talk about that later. And if any of the commissioners have thoughts or suggestion on that, let us know. And by the way, I forgot to mention Commissioner Peasley and Commissioner Guest were unable to be with us today. Steve, I can't remember, is Commissioner Peasley going to be with us the rest of the week?
It's my understanding that both of them plan to be here tomorrow.
Okay. And I assume if they're here tomorrow, probably the rest of the week. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That was what I was thinking, but I couldn't remember from earlier emails. Okay. Anything else that Terry, if you have anything else, or June, if not, we'll give Steve a chance to any last minute things. I don't have anything else. So anybody else have anything? Steve says he doesn't. Doesn't look like Terry, Commissioner, Vice Chairman Wheeler, or
Just like to thank Steve and Alexandra.
yeah, okay. As always, and things have run really, really smoothly. It's been amazing this year. We thought we'd have the issues with the pro se parties dealing with the virtual hearings. Actually, we probably had more issues with the counties than we did with the pro se parties, but all of them were able to be resolved. I don't think we ever had to continue a hearing till the next day or anything that I remember. We've been able to resolve them, and of course we've tried not to do complex hearings because that's much more difficult. But we have done one or two that had expert witnesses in them. So and we were able to do them, but it's more difficult. Okay, all right. We'll see everyone at 9 o'clock in the morning then, and thanks so much.
Hi, everyone.
Bye-bye.